10, I should be live streaming. Nice. No drop frames.
The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world.
My pleasure to introduce the nation's Mercury astronauts.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
Ever since man learned to fly, he has set his sights on the heavens. To fly through the air was one thing, but to fly into space and perhaps land on the moon or another planet was unimaginable in the minds of most. Of the many amazing things that man has discovered about space, one of the most fascinating is that space makes sounds, unique sounds. But are there really sounds in space? The answer is no and yes. There are no sounds in space as we would traditionally think of sounds here on Earth. Sound has to have a medium of molecules in which to travel. Since space is more of a vacuum, then sound, as we define it, cannot be transmitted. However, we now know that radio waves are given off by heavenly objects and bodies and events, and they can be converted into audio waves by computer. When these radio waves are converted to audio waves, we can hear the sounds of space. Various spacecraft and recording instruments have captured these radio waves given off by these celestial bodies and space phenomena. In the next few moments, you will hear NASA recordings of 7 of these fascinating, eerie, and beautiful sounds, the voices of the heavens. The complete Cassini space probe was launched on October 15, 1997, and after a long interplanetary voyage, it entered into orbit around Saturn on July 1st, 2004. The space probe is equipped with a special sensing instrument that receives and measures radio signals emanating from space, and most recently, from Saturn. Here are the sounds of Saturn. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. 3,000 years ago, the psalmist was given this truth by the Lord God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. It has only been within our lifetime that we have discovered the literalness of this truth. The heavens declare the glory of God. There is no place where their voice or their speech is not heard.
I was telling my guest that what he went through, is so amazing. There should be a Hollywood movie about this. You're going to be so shocked. He's a nice, all-American kid, football, swimming, good grades, and then out of the blue, something happens. He's sledding one day, and he sleds right into a car. And he's damaged physically, and he'll never be better. And his whole identity is lost. He can't be an athlete anymore. And then he starts running with the wrong crowd, and drugs, and guns, and violence. And fortunately, he didn't die. Many of his friends died in high school that he was running with. But as a result of what he went through, he finally snapped. He lost his ability to function as a human. So they put him into the Delaware State Institution for the Insane. And they decided the only thing they could do was an electronic lobotomy. That means he would be confined to being about a 3-year-old for the rest of his life. But 2 days before the lobotomy, a courageous man shares the gospel with him. And Gary Whitstone said a prayer of salvation. He didn't understand what he was doing, but all of a sudden, after that prayer, he was in his right mind. So he goes to the doctor, because in 2 days he's going to have this lobotomy. And what happened, Gary?
I end up in the doctor's office, and I'm telling him exactly what happened. Here I am. I'm telling him I've got long red hair, long beard. They've taken the hand restraints off, feet restraints. And I sit down. I said, look, my mind is sound. He said, how'd you get a sound mind? I said, Jesus came in. He says, so you're hearing the voice of God. I said,
You're hearing voices. So you tell a psychiatrist this in a mental institution.
Yeah. So I'm hearing the voice of God. So the guy pushes his glasses down his nose and sits back. He says, he writes something down on his pad. I could tell the guy did not believe me. So I lunged over the table and I beat that guy in the face. I mean, that's what a mental patient does. So anyway, I mean, how many other people act like the devil after they get born again? So anyway, here I am, and they put me back in restraints. I'm going back to isolation. They've shot me up again with the drugs they knocked me down with, and here I am, and they put me in this corridor going back to my isolation ward, which is where that's where I lived. I lived in an isolated cell. And they took the restraints off my hands and my feet, and Sid, I heard an audible voice speak to me. I'm standing in the middle of that hallway, and I hear this voice say, run. Well, I'm a mental patient, so I'm thinking, where?
Well, everything's padlocked. Where are you going to run?
I mean, I'm in a caged area. They've got padlocks on all the walls of the doors, everything. If I go back and forth, I got about 15 feet to run. If I go back and forth this way, I got 5 feet. So I get this next thought, run! I hear it again, and I look over to my left, and there's a door that had several deadbolts on it, chain lock, and it was taken off and open. And I ran out of the state hospital that day, went into the solarium where the more trusted inmates were, the mental patients. And I remember that because when the state police cruiser brought me in months ago, I remember seeing there was more more stable people. So I run in there and I said, I'm on a run. So he's going, run. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, so a guy threw
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but then, listen to this. When he gets out, a car is heading right for him. Quickly, what happened?
I ran right in the middle of that road, and the car went through me. The next thing I knew, I'm on the sidewalk, and I'm thinking, what was that? And I saw this car pull over off the side of the road, so I thought, oh man, they're going to turn me in. So I started running down the road.
But many years later, what happened?
That woman that was in that car was a psychologist in the state hospital. She was a regular psychologist, and she saw a man with gray hair, big blue eyes come up on her. She thought she killed him, but she said all of a sudden his body passed through her car, and she was shocked. Got over on the side of the road, and an audible voice of God spoke to her: "Do not turn him in. He belongs to me."
And I'm taking you back now to July 1980. She is sleeping. Nothing should happen. And she wakes up and she realizes there's a burglar in her apartment. And worse than that, he's got a pipe in his hand and he starts beating her. And I have pictures here of what she looked like from this beating. No one should have to go through something like this. And she literally, you told me you felt your spirit leave your body?
Yes, it popped. I felt like up and out, and I was traveling. It seemed like the speed of light. I was on my way. I could see twinkle lights in the distance. I said in my heart, Father, receive me into your hands, the words of Scripture.
So you thought you were dying?
Oh, I did. I was convinced, and in my last words to myself, I'm so sorry that the people who love me will see me like this and think I suffered a lot more, actually, than I did.
Okay, so she had all these head wounds. She's bleeding profusely. There's blood all over the place. Then the police get there, and they're mystified because they don't find her in her bedroom. They find her outside. They find no trail of blood because when you have head wounds, your face really, the blood, just gushes. Yes. They couldn't find anything between the bedroom and where she ended up. And they were mystified by that. And as a matter of fact, you were mystified by that until you had a dream. Tell me about that.
And in my dream, I saw Jesus come into the room where my lifeless body was lying at the door where I had fallen and picked me up. And he did CPR. Jesus does CPR like nobody, with his mouth over my nose and mouth, and blew into my body the breath of life, I call it. And I saw like an electric shock, like my body just came to life. And then I saw him carry me outside, and I saw all the way out the door, out of the bedroom, across the patio, and all the way down a long dog run, and propped me up at the fence at the end of that dog run. That's the only explanation I have.
Okay, well, the police, again, were mystified. That's as good an explanation as I can think of. But look at the comfort that should bring you. The Messiah cares so much about you. He cares as much about you as he cares about Sherry. But Sherry, what was going on with your hand, your face, your bones?
Serious injuries. First of all, it seemed that I'd put my hand up on top of my head, and the pipe had crushed 2 knuckles. They were just bone fragments and powder. There just happened to be the top hand surgeon in all of Orange County, California, at the hospital at 6:30 in the morning when they needed to do surgery. That was God. But he said, I could only sew you up. You will never use your right hand again. It's just bone fragments and powder. My ring finger was almost torn from my hand. It was hanging by a small little piece of skin. He sewed that back on, and he said, that won't be normal. I had 2 crushed discs in my neck, and I had cracked teeth, and a part of my scalp was torn off the top of my head.
You heard an audible voice of God. What did he say to you?
Yes, when I was praying and crying out to the Lord, where do I stand with you? Will I be healed? Will I be deformed and handicapped? I heard the voice of an angel the next morning at 5 in the morning in my bedroom saying, Sherry, beautiful voice, look at your hand. It was out of the removable cast and moving. And prior to that, in physical therapy, I could barely move my finger a quarter of an inch, and I felt sick. And the pain was so much. My hand was moving, and then I heard that beautiful voice say, you're going to go back to where you were before, but you're going to get progressively better and better until you're totally healed. And here I am.
What do you think about that? I love that. That's my God. That's your God. That's your God. I can't think of anything more tragic than someone to develop stage 4 cancer, not know about God's supernatural healing, and to have a son that's just a young, 13 years of age. What happened to your mom?
Yeah, well, when I was 13 years old, my mother got breast cancer, and went to the hospital, went to the doctors, went through all the stages of treatment, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And finally the doctors told her, there wasn't much that they could do. And at that time, there was an amazing person that came and actually gave my mother a Bible and said, hey, Jesus heals. You should read this and check it out. And so my mother actually ended up reading the Bible, and anyway, she saw that Jesus healed people, and so in her room alone, she just cried out to God, and she said, Jesus, if you're really real and you heal people, then heal me. And when she said that, she went into an open vision, and she saw the hand of God come down out of heaven and touch her. And anyway, she was instantly healed of cancer, went back to the hospital. They couldn't find a trace of cancer anymore, and she became the first believer in our family.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Jeremy. You see something like that, and I don't know how you did it, but then you're about 16, and you steal your father's Corvette. You were a mischievous young man.
Yeah, I was pretty wild. So, yeah, my parents left. They went out of town, and anyway, it was perfect time for me and my friends to go for a ride. So, I took the keys out of my dad's desk, and me and 2 other guys, we took off in the car. And anyway, I wasn't used to driving a car that powerful, so when I actually went around a corner, went around a bend near my house, I hit the accelerator, spun out of control, and the car flew off the road.